people, my name is Nicole and today I want to talk to you guys about City of Saints and Thieves by Natalie C. Anderson. Penguin was kind enough to send me this ARC, so thank you so much, Penguin. Note this review is not sponsored or anything, they just sent me the ARC. Again, thank you, Penguin. And this book comes out on the 24th of January, so that's coming up pretty soon. So keep an eye out at your local bookstore. If you haven't heard of this book, which I haven't really heard anyone, especially on BookTube, talking about it, so you may not have. This is about a girl who she and her mom escaped the Congo as refugees when she was young, but 5 years ago her mom was murdered and she'd spent the past 5 years living as a thief in Kenya, trying to solve this mystery of her mom's murder, and she's now just starting to get close. She thinks she knows who's done it and she wants to get sort of her revenge. This entire review is going to be non-spoilery, so if you have not read the book yet, do not worry. I'm not going to say anything that could potentially ruin it for you. So overall, I really liked this book. The environment it's set in is one that I'm not super familiar with, seeing as I've never been to Kenya or the Congo. I haven't read a lot of books set there, so this was sort of a fresh experience for me. And so far as I could tell, it seemed like everything was portrayed fairly realistically. But like I said, this is with the stipulation of I don't have a ton of experience to say how accurate everything is. I thought that the characters were all really interesting, complex people who were really well developed. Even just the side characters who you only saw for like a chapter or two were interesting and unique and seemed like complex, well-rounded, real people, not just props that the author threw in to serve a purpose. So our main trio of characters is Tina, who's sort of our main protagonist, and she is a thief working for this gang in Kenya, and I absolutely loved her. I thought that she was interesting and complex, and every time we got another little piece of her backstory, I wanted to know more. I think she's one of those characters that just really draws you in. She's not necessarily the nicest person at all times, but at the end of the day, I do think she is trying to do what's right, even if sometimes that gets a bit muddled with her mission for revenge. Then we have Michael, who is the son of the man who Tina thinks killed her mother, and they have a bit of a history together. I want to be kind of vague because discovering Tina and her mom's whole background is sort of part of the mystery of this book, but they do have something back in their past that links them, and Michael is helping Tina figure out what happened to her mom. And again, I loved Michael. I thought he was such a sweetheart. He's one of those people who's just so genuinely earnest that you can't help but love him. Like, even when you're mad at him, you still kind of love him. He may be a little idealistic at times, but I do think he's a really good person. And then our third main character is Boy, who is one of Tina's friends sort of from the streets, and he's a hacker who's kind of sporadically involved in Tina's gang of thieves. He doesn't really want to get too involved because he doesn't want to get caught up in that world, but he does help out when she asks. And he is really sort of one of Tina's only friends on the streets. I feel like in all the sort of craziness and, you know, murder plots, mystery that's going on in this book, Boy was kind of a breath of fresh air. He felt so normal, even though he's this badass Hollywood type hacker who can get into any computer system and figure out any information you might need. The way he talks, the way he interacts with people, it feels so refreshingly normal teenager. And I really appreciated that. So because Tina's a thief, she has all these sort of rules for herself as to what a thief is supposed to be, how they're supposed to act, and throughout the book she tells us these rules. I sort of went back and forth on how I felt about these. In the beginning I was like, oh, you know, these are really cool, kind of a cool intro, and then we got to like page 60-ish and she was still doing them, and I was kind of like, okay, we get it, like, is this still an intro? Are you gonna keep doing this the whole thing? I'm a little confused, like, why? But she kept it going throughout the entire book, and by the end of the book I had sort of learned to appreciate them. It felt like they gave a little bit of a thematic structure to the plot and helped organize things that otherwise could have been a very hectic chain of events. Speaking of organization, this book jumps around in timeline a lot. So if that's something you don't like in your books, just a warning, this has a lot of it. I personally think Natalie Anderson did a really good job of making it clear where in the timeline we are at all times and when we're doing flashback. I personally didn't have a problem with it, though I can see how it could potentially be a little bit jarring. So this book is marketed as being sort of Gone Girl meets Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but YA. That's on the back of the ARC. It's in the Goodreads description. I personally don't see a lot of that. I feel like using those books as comparisons makes it sound a lot darker and more like explicit than it actually is. Like, don't get me wrong, this definitely goes to some dark places. There's a lot of violence and discussions of sexual assault. Nothing particularly graphic when it comes to the sexual assault, but the violence does get relatively graphic. But this does deal with some difficult subjects. Tina and her mom are refugees from the Congo because there are bad people and gangs and warlords, making it just dangerous for them to stay there. And a lot of Tina finding out what happened to her mom involved talking about and figuring out what happened back home. So there is a lot of discussion of that. One thing that I really appreciated that Natalie Anderson did really well is I feel like she made the people that Tina talked to in the Congo realistic. I think it's really easy when you're talking about people who are in dangerous situations or in trouble, especially people who have real world counterparts. It's really easy to either make them, you know, this huge inspiration porn, look at how brave this person is, don't actually look at who they are as a person, but they're so brave, or to make them, you know, these sympathetic victims and reduce them down to this victimhood. I think both of those are really dehumanizing because you're reducing people down to either their sort of martyrdom or their victimhood, neither of which are realistic. These people are humans who, they're in a difficult situation and they've had some hard times, but they're still people. And yeah, they've had to be incredibly strong at times, but again, they're still people and there's more to them than just their situation. And I think Natalie Anderson did a really good job of portraying that. There's a really great author's note in the back that talks about how a lot of the experiences of Tina and her mother are things that Natalie Anderson heard and learned about while working with refugees in the Congo and in Kenya. Her author bio and in the author's note talks a lot about how she worked with the Human Rights Watch and the UN with refugees in that area. So she definitely has done her research for this. And obviously, again, I can't say how accurate it is because I haven't done that research. I haven't lived that, but it does come off as very honest. I just think she did a really good job with this. I think it comes off as honest. The action is thrilling and keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. The mystery has lots of interesting plot twists and a really, really good climax that is interesting and satisfying. There's just the tiniest bit of romance that's just enough to be satisfying, but not so much that it overpowers the rest of the story or even really influences the rest of the story all that much. So overall, I really liked this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I think the only thing that would have pushed it up to a 5 stars is a little bit more character development, relationship development between the characters, between their friendships. I really liked all the characters, but I didn't really get that sort of clicking connection to them. But still 4.5 stars, so I did really, really enjoy it. I highly recommend you pick this up when it comes out on the 24th. So if you've read this book, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Let's talk about it. I love you and I'll see you later.